So recently, with the release of FNAF X Dead by Daylight, I have been getting very into Dead by Daylight, and specifically, I've really been enjoying playing Killer and of course, Springtrap. However, as cool as Springtrap is, there are way more FNAF characters, and I've always wondered what the abilities and powers of every FNAF character would be if they were in Dead by Daylight instead of Springtrap. Well, in this video, I'm going to be doing exactly that, going through every FNAF character and coming up with a unique power for each one. Please keep in mind that I'm only human and try to make things as interesting as possible, but feel free to let me know in the comments below your ideas. And of course, this will be a very long video, so strap yourself in, don't forget to subscribe so we can hit our goal of 100k, and let's get into the video. Alright, so to start this massive list off, we're going to start with the original FNAF 1 crew, starting with none other than the main man himself, Freddy Fazbear. Freddy being the leader of the band and probably the most dangerous of the original four, I wanted to try and make something simple yet effective, just like his in-game counterpart. So my idea for this power is called Child Laughter. Freddy will get the ability to laugh, and when he does, he is able to do a variety of effects which are chosen by the player. There are two types of laugh. One will reveal the aura of any survivor within a 40 meter area, the second will block any windows or vaults within a 32 meter radius. Any survivor within his laugh radius will suffer the blindness effect for the duration of the move, which lasts about 10 seconds. Freddy's laugh has a 30-second cooldown between uses. I think this is a simple power that could be quite effective, allowing Freddy to find and trap survivors. Next, we have Bonnie, who out of the original four, I had the most trouble coming up with an idea for. However, I have a very simple idea for his power, something called rabbit hunting. Bonnie will have a stalk meter, similar to Michael Myers, except filling up the bar by looking at survivor adds to a teleport meter, which once able to, Bonnie gets the ability to teleport to any nearby gens, windows or pallets. Once he teleports, his ability resets. Not a super complicated power and probably not a super strong killer overall, but one that I think could definitely scare survivors. Now next up, we have the Chicken. Chica has a very obvious power, but one that I think will work super effectively. Her power will be Cupcake Frenzy. And her power would be very similar to Houndmaster and Twins, with Chica being able to have Carl the Cupcake jump off and chase survivors, able to jump and latch on, slowing them down, and if they are injured, down them. Again, kinda just the Twins, but I think it fits really well, and I can't think of any other idea if I'm being completely honest. Now, the last of the original four, Foxy. Foxy is one of the more interesting animatronics of the original cast, since he is quite fast, and for his power, I have a very simple idea for his power. Foxy's power will be similar to Blight with a dash attack, however unlike Blight, it'll work a little differently. Foxy's power would be called something like Pirate Dash, and it would be a very similar dash ability to someone like Hillbilly, where he gets one large dash which is tricky to turn with, and where he can hit a survivor while dashing similar to Oni's Demon Dash. However, unlike those two powers, they won't insta-down survivors. I think this is a simple idea that has potential and makes great use for Foxy's presence in the original FNAF games. Now, for our last FNAF 1 character, I think out of everyone, Golden Freddy would probably make the best fit out of all the FNAF 1 characters to actually be in Dead by Daylight, and for them, I have some pretty cool ideas. Golden Freddy is obviously very supernatural and very creepy, and this could make for a really cool DBD power, which I will call Golden Terror, as corny as that is. For the first part of their power, Golden Freddy starts off with the ability to place posters around the map, and can teleport to them at any time up to a maximum of 5 posters. These posters are removed once Golden Freddy teleports to each one of them one time. The second part of their power involves Golden Freddy gaining the ability to walk through objects for 2 seconds upon activation, which would be insanely strong. And when I mean objects, I mean like walls, pallets, all that stuff. However, they will only be able to do this once every 120 seconds. Now, an add-on idea for Golden Freddy would be an item that makes it so that for every generator that gets completed, an extra second is added to his phase timer, which means by endgame, he would be insanely powerful. And for a perk idea, we gotta go with one called It's Me, which I think would make it so that whenever a survivor is unhooked, the aura of a survivor who saved the original has their aura revealed for 3 seconds. And if it's a second hook, it's 6 seconds. I don't know, this could be a cool idea. And that's all the ideas of the original crew. Now, let's move on to the FNAF 2 game. FNAF 2 has a large amount of characters, and the wizards are actually very similar, enough that I nearly made them just be skins for the original 4, which could 100% be the case, and what I think would actually be the case for Golden Freddy, since his withered form seems to be the more canon option, and maybe the FNAF 1 version could be a skin, But for the other wizards and even the toys, I actually think making them all have their own unique powers would be more interesting, especially for this video. So let's start with Withered Freddy. Withered Freddy is probably my favourite of the wizards, and for their power, I actually think we could make the mask an actual in-game item. So here's the idea for the power I want to call Masked Fear. Withered Freddy is completely invisible to survivors, but is a basic M1 killer. However, if a survivor finds one of the 7 Freddy masks around the map and puts it on, they'll be able to see him. I think this is a simple power that could be interesting for sure, but it may be a bit overpowered or just simply a bit too easy to counter, but I also think that getting down would make it so that the player drops or breaks the mask. Get it? Anyways, next up we have everyone's favourite, Withered Bonnie. Withered Bonnie I think should have a punch ability since it's kind of a meme at this point, so here's the idea for their power called Animatronic Strength. Withered Bonnie has a basic punch attack which allows him to charge an attack up to 40 meters away, and if it connects, it cripples the survivor, making them 20% slower until they are healed. And this does not go away when they are downed, and they have to go to a medical station to heal up. However, this ability does not actually injure survivors, making it a third hit, kinda like Nemesis with his first tentacle attack. I think this could be a fun idea and would be really funny for Withered Bonnie. Also, an add-on idea could be his missing face or arm, and this could do something like make the crippled state actually injure survivor or something like that. Withered Chica is up next, and she is actually the reason I decided to come up with original ideas for powers, since her not having a cupcake makes things really interesting. Her power would be called Withered Bite, and it would work like this. Withered Chica would be able to place little withered bite traps around the map that instead of having survivors walk into them, they could be placed on pallets, on windows, and if the survivor performs that action, the survivor would be hit and be injured or downed. The second ability is Chica could stick her arm into the ground and cause wires to appear, similar to Freddy or Executioner, and Freddy I mean Freddy Krueger, not Freddy Fazbear. To be honest, I really like this power, but to make it balanced, Chica could only have 4 of these traps at a time, and survivors could obviously disable them. However, they automatically go back into Chica's inventory if this happens. Anyways, on to our last Withered. Withered Foxy is probably the most likely Withered to ever get added as a skin, but at the same time, who am I to say? For their power, I honestly don't know. Foxy's original power fits him so well, and I really don't know what else could be done for him. However, I do have add-on and perk ideas. For add-ons, 100% could be flashlight batteries, which could be a BB idea as well, which would make it so that if you get stunned with a flashlight, you gain 20% haste for 10 seconds after the stun wears off or something like that. An idea for a perk for Withered Foxy could be low battery, where if you are stunned by a flashlight, you can see the aura of any survivor within a 12-meter range for 4 seconds once the flash wears off, meaning that it could work against survivors and they would have to manage the ability around pallets more often. So now let's get onto the toy animatronics, which actually also have a ton of potential. Now to be honest, there is no way that Toy Freddy or any of the toys besides possibly Mangle would ever actually be considered to be a DBD killer. However, I do have a really funny idea for Toy Freddy, which is called Rage Quit. This will be a passive power, where a gaming setup will be on every single generator, and cause survivors to suffer from the frustrated status effect, which makes skill checks appear more frequently, and if the survivor is frustrated for long enough, the skill checks become like the impossible build. Now, survivors can play the game next to the generator to remove the effect, but again, it requires you to play the game for 30 seconds, all the while doing difficult skill checks. This idea is of course flawed, and probably super unfun to go against, but at the end of the day, I think this power is super fitting for Toy Freddy. Toy Bonnie is another character I just do not ever see getting added to this game, and for their power, I decided that the reference to the fact that in 1020 mode, in FNAF 2, he is the biggest bitch imaginable. So his power will be called, I don't know, I want to do something with an RNG pun, but I don't know. Anyways, his power will consist of him being able to play his guitar to gain a status effect for 20 seconds. One would make him have 20% haste, one would make survivors exposed, and the third would regress nearby gens. I do think it would be an interesting power, but I don't know. Okay, now onto the characters I actually have good ideas for. Starting with Toy Chica. I think she should have a similar ability to normal Chica, except with the added ability to throw your beak at survivors, having a similar range and feel to Huntress's axe, but sticking to survivors like Springtrap. A simple power and a recycled one, I know, but I will make up for that with a fun perk idea. This perk is called, You Won't Get Tired of My Voice, Will You? Yeah, I know, I'm so fucking funny. Anyways, this perk will make it so that once you break chase with the obsession, every other survivor will hear you map wide for 20 seconds, which could really throw players off. Now, out of every toy animatronic, I think that Mangle actually has the most potential out of all of them to actually have a cool power, and actually potentially make it into the game. Mangle's power would be called Distorted Voices, where they have the power to send an audio frequency throughout the map which warps survivors' reality, making them hear sounds they otherwise shouldn't, such as generators being completed, survivor grunts, etc. Mangle also has a vent system that she can crawl through similar to Xeno, and also has the ability to climb onto walls and onto the ceiling to jump down for surprise attacks. Like for example, she can hide in the shack on the ceiling and jump down on the survivors if they pass through. I actually think this would be a super cool idea, since the idea of a killer being able to latch onto the ceiling and jump down on survivors is super creepy, and I would love to see a similar power actually implemented into the game, even if it's not Mangle. Now next up, yes, I came up with a power for Balloon Boy, as dumb as it sounds. Balloon Boy has balloons that he can place around the map, where if a survivor is within 8 meters of the balloon, the survivor's aura is revealed by a killer instinct, allowing BB to teleport to the balloon to swing at the survivor, popping the balloon in the process. Obviously, this would make him weak as shit, but it's fucking Balloon Boy, so cut me some slack. A perk idea for BB is called Chasing Light, where when you are chasing someone with a flashlight, you gain 5% haste while in chase, and if they stun you, you gain an additional 20% for 10 seconds. So now we have Shadow Freddy, who I actually think could rival Golden Freddy or even be a Golden Freddy skin. However, let's actually try and come up with a power for them. Their power will be called Shadows Awaken. When they spawn in, they are able to enter a state called Shadow Side, which makes the survivor's vision completely dark, only able to see 4 meters around them, as well as having their sounds amplified. However, they are completely invisible to Shadow Freddy, although while on the Shadow Side, he moves at 12.5 meters per second and can also see the aura of any survivor who works on a gen or performs a fast action for 2 seconds. However, he can't grab a survivor off a gen or hit a survivor in Shadow Side, although he can attack very quickly like the Spirit, who is basically the killer-eyed bow this ability off. I think this would make Shadow Freddy a very powerful killer, which is very fitting for this character. Next up, we have the other Shadow animatronic, Shadow Bonnie, who I think could actually have a really cool ability, although it could also be the same as Shadow Freddy. Their power will be called Shadows Corrupted. I know, super original. Anyway, here's the idea. Shadow Bonnie will get the ability to manifest Shadow Freddy heads to shoot across the map, and any survivor it hits will suffer the same darkness effect as Shadow Freddy's power until they cleanse themselves by opening a gift box around the map. They will also have a shorter range variant which doesn't infect them but slows them for 3 seconds and prevents them from vaulting or throwing a pallet for 1 second. I think this could be a really cool concept, but probably not the most original or the most practical. However, with the idea of gift boxes, now we have probably the one character I really think they should 100% add to Dead by Daylight, and that character is the Puppet, not the Mimic, the Puppet. I'm serious, the Puppet should 100% be in this game. The Puppet is one of the most iconic characters in the series besides Springtrap, and I think they would make an excellent addition to Dead by Daylight. In fact, their power was more clear to me, and I have so many ideas for powers, perks, and add-ons, and I'm surprised that there were no add-ons in Springtrap's release that actually reference the Puppet in any way. The only thing that you could really argue is his chase music is like a music box. But anyways, let's go over my ideas for the Puppet. Starting with their power, which I will call Save Them, because it's the Puppet. When the Puppet spawns in, there are 5 gift boxes around the map that the Puppet can teleport to at any time, giving them the undetectable status for 10 seconds and great map pressure. The Puppet's music boxes could be wound up by survivors, causing the gift box to be unable to be used for 120 seconds, then unable to be wound again for an additional 120 seconds. However, doing so would make survivors exposed and have their aura revealed to them for 3 seconds once the Puppet enters their second ability, which I will call Children's Lullaby. When the Puppet enters this mode, the Puppet's music box will play throughout the entire map. The map will become foggy, similar to Dredge's Nightfall, and the Puppet becomes undetectable, and a speed boost from 4.6 meters to 9.2 meters until they hit a survivor. Once they hit a survivor, the ability deactivates for 60 seconds. If anyone wound up a music box to prevent the Puppet from being able to teleport, then once Children's Lullaby activates, they are exposed until the power deactivates and their aura is revealed for 3 seconds at the start of the ability. I think this power would be amazing and really make good use of the Puppet's stealth and creepy factor, as well as the panic you experience in FNAF 2 if you forget to wind the music box. Now for a perk idea, I have a perk called Give Gifts, Give Life, which makes it so that if you hit an injured survivor, every other survivor becomes exposed for 60 seconds, meaning you could potentially get multiple downs for the price of saving one. We could also make the perk be that if you hit the obsession while injured, so there's more planning, but that's just an idea. And with that, we have come up with ideas for all the FNAF 2 cast. Now, to move on to FNAF 3. To be honest, when it comes to FNAF 3, they kinda nailed it with Springtrap, as coming up with concepts for all the Phantoms seems really boring. So instead, I will make an entirely new power for Springtrap himself, and actually incorporate all the Phantoms into his power. So Springtrap's power will be called Phantom Influence. Springtrap will have access to the 6 Phantoms, which all do a variety of things, making it sort of a stronger version of Knight, but with a lot more variety. Phantom BB would be a tracker similar to the Houndmaster's dog, locking onto gens and showing killer instinct to anyone nearby. Phantom Freddy would be the chaser, running towards survivors, and if they make contact, they will grab the survivor and slow them. Next, Phantom Mangle can be placed on ceilings and walls, and if they catch a survivor, they are stuck for 10 seconds. Phantom Puppet can be activated on a generator, and if survivors interact with that generator, they will be injured and the gen will be blocked for 60 seconds. And finally, Phantom Chica will block pallets and windows. Obviously, Springtrap can only use one Phantom at a time, but this wide variety of moves makes him quite versatile, although I still like the version we actually got in the live game. This is just a simple idea that I thought would be neat. A perk idea for Springtrap would be something called Follow Me, which would make it so that if you are in chase with the obsession for 30 seconds, all other survivors' auras are revealed for 10 seconds and are exposed for 60 seconds, which could be a cool, powerful perk, although it could also be made a hex. But anyways, let's move on to the FNAF 4 cast. For the FNAF 4 cast, we have some really cool ideas, although they could again just be skins. Like all the nightmares have unique properties that make them unique killers' powers a cool thing to explore. So let's start with Nightmare Freddy. Nightmare Freddy will have a power called Freddle Fury, which will work similar to twins, with Nightmare Freddy having 3 Freddles on them, able to release one at a time to do different things. One would have the ability to pounce and injure a survivor, the second would have the ability to see the auras of any survivors within a 24 meter radius, and the third would be able to run to a generator super fast, like 22.5 meters per second, and see if anyone is there. This is a simple idea, and to be honest, I couldn't really think of anything else to do with the Freddles, besides making them like the artist and her crows, but I thought this was a cooler idea. For Nightmare Bonnie, I actually have an idea for their power, which would be called Carrot Planting. Don't worry, I have a good plan for this. Don't worry, trust me on this one, please. So their power would basically be burrowing. While they are walking, they are able to place 5 Bonnie plushies around, which Nightmare Bonnie can teleport to and move around in a 24 meter bubble from the plushie, able to jump out and hit survivors from underground. However, survivors would be able to hear you burrowing so that you wouldn't be completely free to jump scare them and attack them. But this could be a super cool idea, but one that would never actually make it into the game. Nightmare Chica is our next animatronic, and for their power, of course, I just have a Cupcake Twins power again, but I want to do something a little bit different. So their power will be called Birthday Bash. Nightmare Chica can place up to 5 cupcakes around the map, and placing any more will move the first cupcake that you place down, and so on and so forth. If a survivor runs over a cupcake, the cupcake will explode, injuring and crippling the survivor in the same way it did for Withered Bonnie. She can also see the aura of anyone near the cupcake with Killer Instinct for the first 2 seconds, and when it explodes, she sees where it explodes too. This could be a variation on what Trapper could be, and would make her a more landmine based killer than Bear Traps, which would be a lot more effective if you ask me, and also a lot more fun. Now we have Nightmare Foxy, who I can think of a variety of abilities for their power, but for their actual power, I'm going to call it Hidden Booty. Do not take that out of context. For this power, Nightmare Foxy will have closets around the map, which he can teleport to similar to Springtrap's doors, except he can hide in the closet and wait to pounce in an 8 meter range. And probably survivors could tell if he's there, I don't know, we'll see about that. Their second ability would be to be able to do a stealth dash attack similar to the pig, where he can get down low and then sprint after a survivor. I think this could be a super cool idea for sure, and the idea of closets and jumping out of them is something that would be super cool to do. Now for Nightmare Fredbear, who is probably the most likely of the FNAF 4 cast to ever actually become a character in DBD. His power could be extremely cool. His power will be called Nightmare Munchies. I'm so clever. Anyways, for this power, I think it would be cool if Fredbear had an influence effect where while repairing generators, players suffer from the Nightmare status effect, where players slowly get put to sleep similar to Freddy Krueger, not Freddy Fazbear. However, once survivors are finally asleep, if they don't wake themselves up, Fredbear heads will start appearing in the location near the player. Fredbear heads will start appearing near the player, making the screaming sound effect and alerting Fredbear to your location, as well as him being able to teleport to the heads and instantly lunge forward for a bite, and if he connects, he instantly downs the survivor. I couldn't really think of any other ideas, and even Nightmare I think works better as a skin for Fredbear rather than their own character. But if you have any ideas, feel free to let them know in the comments below. Also, if you've been enjoying the video so far, once again, I would like to ask you to subscribe. I'm trying to get to 100k by the end of the years. But anyways, for Nightmare though, I will make a perk just to make it a little bit more fair. A perk idea I have for them is called Hex. I will put you back together, where once the survivor is fully healed off a hook, they lose a hook state, and the saver is put into the second hook state regardless of how many they currently have. This affects each survivor one time, and yes, I made it a hex because of how strong this could potentially be. Now, Nightmare is a character that I think I would love to explore, since as cool as Nightmare puppet skin would be, I also think they could have their own power, which I will call Puppet Strings. Nightmare would have two abilities, the first being a tentacle attack, which could either be used as a range attack or could be used to heavily slow survivors, as well as a passive ability called Sedation, where the puppet's music box will be located on the map and slowly turn survivors insane, making them see the Nightmare in the distance and hear strange noises. Eventually, if survivors get too insane, they'll be unable to open the exit gates or repair generators. To fix this, they have to find the puppet's music box and wind it up, which will deactivate the ability for 120 seconds until it spawns again in a random location. I think this could be a really cool ability, and one that would even fit the normal puppet. But with that, we're done with all the FNAF 4 characters, at least the ones I think are interesting, and let's move on to the sister location characters. Let's start with Circus Baby, a character who is extremely underappreciated in their actual canon game, so I want to make up for it with an actually cool power. Their power will be called Lured and Conquered. Circus Baby will be able to place and activate up to 3 scoopers placed around the map, which would emit the noise of a generator 15 seconds after the activation, and any survivors who walk towards one will be scooped and instantly downed. But obviously, if Baby puts them in a bad spot, then they could be spotted, and if approached from behind, survivors can deactivate them, of course. Baby's second ability would be the range attack with her internal scooper, which can injure survivors in a similar way to Xeno's tail or Nemesis' tentacle. This could be a cool power that forces survivors to pay attention to surroundings in order not to get trapped. A perk idea for Circus Baby is We All Scream for Ice Cream. Once all 4 survivors have been in chase throughout the match, the next time the survivor is hooked, all remaining survivors scream, having their aura revealed for 9 seconds and are exposed for 60 seconds, which could be an extremely powerful perk, but one that could be a lot of fun, and you can also make it a hex if you want. Now onto Funtime Freddy, who obviously has Bonbon, which obviously means this could be another Twins or Chica copy, but I really want to try and make something completely different. So their power would be called Comforting Voice. Funtime Freddy's power would involve Bonbon being more of a control device to make Funtime Freddy enter certain modes, as well as being a projectile that could stick to survivors like Springtrap's axe. Funtime Freddy could either use Bonbon as a projectile or enter a rage mode by charging Bonbon up until they move super fast, dashing around the map, with Bonbon able to calm Freddy down. Bonbon will also start to make noise and look around whenever a survivor is in 30 meters as an added bonus. This could be a cool idea, although personally not my favourite. Funtime Foxy is our next character, and for them, I actually have a really funny idea for their power, which is called Showtime. Funtime Foxy will have curtains around the map that are connected with vents, and obviously can teleport similar to Xeno's tunnels, but a tad slower. Once they down a survivor, they will be able to put a springlock head on the survivor, and once the generator is completed, they'll have to go to a specific curtain and enter it before the timer goes off, which would be about 45 seconds. If they fail to get there, the survivor is injured 1 health state. The springlock is removed and they suffer from the crippled status effect. This could be a really cool play on the pig's ability, but let me know what you think in the comments. Now next up, we have Ballora, who I actually think could have a super cool ability called Music Box Dancing. Bear with me on this one, please. So Ballora will have 5 mini Renas that can be placed around the map as little guard dogs, giggling and making a little sound whenever a survivor is near them. Although after giggling 3 times, the mini Rena vanishes and can be placed somewhere else. The second and main ability is entering a state called Search Mode, where Ballora moves really fast, has super sensitive hearing, and can see survivors running and vaulting with killer instinct, and can down survivors, as well as making survivors suffer blindness when near Ballora, which is a bit of a play on the spirit's power. I think this could be super cool, but now let's move on to the very last sister location animatronic, Enid. Enid I think could have a variety of powers, but I actually managed to pick the best one out of all the ideas I have. The idea for his power is called Remnant Generator. I am running out of ideas for names. Enid's power would be very similar to Oni's, where you collect orbs to get your power, though instead of blood orbs, it's Remnant. Remnant orbs will have a wider variety of ways to actually get access to the power, Kicking a gen that an injured survivor was on will give you way more remnant than just running from injured survivors, as well as vaults and repairing gens while injured, causing more remnant to appear. Once Ennard has filled his meter, he enters his attack mode, where he starts running stupidly fast at a whopping 15 meters a second I think, but being knocked out of his power once he is stunned or once he downs a survivor. I think this could be a super cool power, and yes, I took his fast running from the glitch attraction. I mean, they have pallets, come on, that level is literally just Dead by Daylight. Alright, so now that we have covered all the sister location characters, let's move on to the FNAF 6 characters. And for FNAF 6, I'm only going to be coming up with powers for the main 4, since, let's face it, the mediocre melodies would not ever even be considered in Dead by Daylight. But if you have any ideas, once again, let me know in the comments below. But let's start with Molten Freddy for this video. Molten Freddy could very well be a skin for Ennard, but I think for their power, I will go with something called Barbed Wire. Molten Freddy will be able to place 2 types of traps, one which, if survivors step on it, they will be injured, which would be like Trapper's bear traps, and the second being a range attack similar to Executioner's range attack, however it would just slow you down if you decided to just run through it, something like 30% slower. Quite a simple power, but not much I could think of. Scrap Trap could very well just be a Springtrap skin in actual Dead by Daylight, and to be honest, I'm struggling with a power for him because he doesn't really deserve one. However, I do have a perk idea which can replace a power, although let me know if you have any power ideas. This perk is called I Always Come Back, and this perk is simple. After getting stunned 2 times in a match, the 3rd stun attempt will completely fail, breaking a pallet, destroying a flashlight's battery, grabbing a survivor with his head on, and Decisive Strike just straight up refusing to work. This perk resets once it's used, meaning every 3rd attempt will fail. This could be a great perk to deal with those pesky survivors who try to stun the kill as much as possible. But now, back to some actual powers. Scrap Baby is next, and a power for her could be super cool. I will call her power Mechanical Claw. I think you see where I'm going with this one. Scrap Baby will have her massive claw be her power, which is able to use to dash forward and grab survivors, similar to Wesker. However, she'll be able to turn similar to a Hillbilly turn, although with the range of 2 Wesker attacks, a simple yet effective power. Now the last of the FNAF 6 characters we'll be discussing today, Lefty. Lefty was almost just an extension of the puppet, however I do think we could make a very cool and interesting power with them. So here's the idea. The power is called Black Eye. Lefty will be able to use his missing eye almost as a guide for the puppet, having 2 types of vision. The normal vision, where you can see everything on the map normally, and the puppet vision, where you'll be able to see windows, pallets, and players with killer instinct, meaning we will always know where players are. Although he would just be an M1 killer, which would be a little bit boring, but I think this makes for a simple yet effective power. Now, before I move on, one more perk idea that I have for Lefty is called Puppet's Music, which would be super simple, where if you're in the killer's terror radius and not in chase, all actions are slowed by 15%, including healing, generators, etc. This could be really powerful as it could prevent sneaky players from sticking to gens near someone getting chased. But back to killer powers. So now that we have covered all the main 6 games, there's a couple of other characters I want to cover as I think they would make for very cool killers. Starting with a help wanted character of all, Dreadbear, whose power would just be called Curse of Dreadbear. It's too perfect, come on. So Dreadbear's power would probably be something similar to Doctor, with him being able to shoot electric blasts to make the survivors go into the snap out of it mode. However, I want to change the way this works. If Dreadbear is able to hit a survivor with the shock, then the survivor will become vulnerable, a state which is impacted by Dreadbear's second ability. Once Dreadbear activates his ability, he is able to see the entire map from the sky and can see where all survivors are. Once in the sky, he has 10 seconds to choose a generator, vault, or pallet to teleport to, and any vulnerable survivors who are in a 32 meter range of this teleport will become exposed for 60 seconds. For a survivor to not be vulnerable, they have to be hooked. I think this could be a really cool idea, and the bird's eye view would be a cool new feature and new playstyle that both killers and survivors could find enjoyable. Please add more shit like this. Now Security Breach obviously has Vanny, who 100% should be in Dead by Daylight and will be discussed soon. But a second killer concept I have is for none other than DJ Music Man. I want to go over his potential power, which I will call the Song of Death. Get it? Because it's music. Anyway, his power will have the pipes from Security Breach that he can crawl in through, and as well as having a passive ability making music constantly play as if you were in his terror radius. Since DJ Music Man would be larger, I want to pose the idea that there are certain loops that he can't enter, but he can have his hand through and grab survivors if they land. Obviously this last idea was a bit stupid and would never actually be in Dead by Daylight, but I thought it was a fun idea to mention nonetheless. Vanny constantly gets compared to Legion whenever they are mentioned, and for what people thought Legion's original concept was going to be, people thought that they were going to be an imposter killer, and I think Vanny would fit this concept perfectly. So her power would be called Optical Illusion, or maybe Rabbit Hunting. Let me know if that would be better and suit Bonnie or Vanny more. Anyways, when Vanny spawns in, she gains the ability to transform into one of the current survivors and appear like a survivor, able to do everything a survivor can do, including gens, vault, and drop pallets for up to 60 seconds, before you are forced out of your power, which also deactivates the ability for 30 seconds. However, you can cancel it early, and once you do, Vanny's true form is revealed. Once in her main form, she gets her second ability called Warp Surroundings, where the player gets a similar visual effect to Gregory in Security Breach whenever a survivor gets too close. This ability deactivates upon hitting a survivor for 30 seconds. I think this would make Vanny have one of the coolest playstyles, as even though against a team calling everything out, Vanny would still be a very good killer, and along with the puppet, I actually think that they are a great contender for Chapter 2, but we all know who it will actually go to. So to finish this video off, let's discuss my idea for the Mimic. The Mimic has a wide variety of ideas since he's so new, and has a lot of cool concepts that were introduced in Secret of the Mimic. However, I think for his ability, I want to make it something simple. His power would be called Mimic Reality, or something like that, and his power is very simple. The Mimic will have the ability to change height from tall to short with a cooldown for 20 seconds for each one, and will also have the ability to mimic sounds, including survivor sounds, pallet breaks, and other sounds as well as having the ability to make each of these sounds map wide. Something simple to end this monstrous video, which I thank you all for watching. Again, if you have any ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and of course, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe as I make content like this all the time. In fact, why don't you check out this video here where I come up with mechanics for all the missing characters in Ultimate Custom Night. It's a banger, I promise. Anyways, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.